I would rather my portfolio go to zero than make a ton of money playing some sort of like insider game where it's just this circular thing, money moves around and rich people keep making each other richer, but you don't actually have the impact in the world.
The same as building a genuine business versus scamming people, right?
Mm-hmm. Anthony Pompliano, the founder and CEO of ProCap.
Former US Army veteran and prominent Bitcoin advocate who in 2025
raised over $750 million to launch ProCap Financial.
I had 95% of my net worth in Bitcoin, and every dollar I got, I bought more Bitcoin. And so it was just full conviction.
There's a fine line between being a gambling addict and being like very concentrated.
To me, it wasn't a risky bet. I have confidence in the analysis that I've done, so I have conviction.
How much do you think about now is a good time to get married and have kids versus where I'm at in this kind of financial position?
I tell young men all the time, the single most motivating thing in the world is when your wife gets pregnant for the first time. There is something biologically that switches in your brain where you are like, it is on me now to make sure that this kid can eat food. It's motivating.
Let's finish with a quick one that people will want to know. You still own a big chunk of your portfolio in Bitcoin. What's a realistic return for 2026 and beyond for someone who buys today at 70K or 80K or 120K?
Well, I think that...
Hi, everyone. This is the little bit that I know none of you like that can help us make a huge difference for this show, and we want to take it next. 71% of the people who regularly watch When Shift Happens have not subscribed. And so all I'd ask you, if you want to make a huge difference, is the following. If you've seen this show before and you like it, help me, help my team, hit the subscribe button, and we'll continue to build this show for you. Thank you. I'll talk about first how you are doing.
Doing great.
Good. For a fifth podcast of the day.
It's just like a meeting.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're the guest, to be honest, it's kind of easy, right? You just go, you just answer.
Yeah.
Preparing for like, as a host is actually much harder.
Yeah. We interviewed this guy today, and I was like, in the morning, I'll just spend a few minutes and I'll put together a bunch of questions by reading through his Twitter account. And then Twitter was down. I was like, oh, shit.
Exactly.
I was like,
Twitter trick.
This is what I get, man. Now, why did I wait till this morning?
So how did it go?
I got on, it was about like the Fed. So it's, things I'm like genuinely interested in. It says, hey, man, we're just going to talk about what I want to talk about. Is that good? He's like, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. For those of you who didn't watch previous episode, where you came on, I think 8 months ago, can you just tell us who you are?
Anthony Pompliano, investor, entrepreneur, somebody who likes to have fun.
You like to have fun, and you have a favorite word, relentless. Why?
That is one of my favorite words. I think that a lot of stuff in life just comes from continuously being persistent and just kind of relentlessly going after something. And most people, they just they give up at some point. Things get hard. It becomes uncertain. There's darkness. And if you can just remember, like, just keep going, man. You'll be all right. It's true in business and your personal life, anything that is kind of worth pursuing.
Absolutely. It's true also in markets, right? Where markets going up, down, price going up, down. It's very easy to be optimistic when price go up, markets go up, when market go down. Sometimes for a long period of time, it's much less easy, but you are super optimistic all the time. Mr. Optimistic. How do you keep conviction when things are bad or look bad and your portfolio is down bad?
Who cares? In the short term, right? Like, it's like Buffett's got this great quote. He says, the market is a voting machine in the short term and a weighing machine in the long term. Just because Bitcoin's price is down doesn't mean Bitcoin's different. It just means that everyone is being dumb and they're letting you buy it on sale. Great. If it's really, really high, maybe actually you shouldn't be so euphoric. Maybe you should say, hey, hold on a second here. Things got a little crazy. It's hard to do, but ultimately, like, what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is something that I think is going to persist and grow and continue to appreciate in value as the world recognizes what it is. So what it does today, tomorrow, next week, next month, who cares? What really matters is, if it's going to work over 10 or 20 years.
Probably easier to say this when you generate really good income every month. Mm-hmm. What do you tell someone who maybe doesn't generate good income every month and who is much more reliant on their portfolio?
When I started investing, I didn't really have that much money. I didn't have any income, actually. Was paying myself $0, and I figured it out. And I knew that it was actually a superpower because I had nothing to lose. right? I can't take tons of risk as I've gotten older, right? We've got a lot of companies, we've got a lot of stuff. You just the risk versus the reward. When you have nothing, what's the risk? That you make a bet and you're right back where you started 6 weeks later, 6 months later? It's not really, that much to lose. As you actually, grow, that's where you become more risk intolerant. And so you have to train yourself to say, no, I have to continue to act in a way that is pursuing asymmetry, that's looking for, kind of outsized returns, which is actually more uncomfortable later in your career than it is in the beginning. You got nothing to lose.
How do you do that?
Well, I think that I basically bifurcate my life. I know that there's things that, I've got responsibilities. I got a family. I got, certain things I got to do. And so I make sure that stuff is covered. And then once I know that, okay, I've got a plan as to how I'll address that stuff, like other side, it's cowboy time. Let's see what we can do. Right. And so you got to be able to compartmentalize, like downside risk with upside capture. It's hard. You got to context switch back and forth, but I've been doing it a long time. So, you learn how to do it.
How much of a cowboy are you? Or do you wish you still were?
Here's how I would describe it is I got a lot of friends who are very, very successful. I probably take more risk than almost all of them when it comes to investing, how far out on the risk curve I'll push at certain times, concentration. It works when you're right, but also you got to have a plan when you're wrong. Right. And so if you said to me, of a lot of the people I know who seeks the most asymmetry, it's me. What that also means, though, is I'm looking for opportunities where it's really, really hard to lose substantially more than one times the downside. So if it is one times downside loss versus unlimited upside capture, okay.
Tell me more about these concentration bets that you're putting, because you're saying, hey, look, I'm the most risk, like the guy who takes the most risk amongst my friends. I want to know more about that. I want to know also if I'm crazy in what I'm doing.
Well, I mean, look, there's different things you do at different points in your life, right? So when I was in my mid to late 20s, I was single and then I got a girlfriend. I had an apartment and that was pretty much all my responsibilities. I had to, get food and kind of like normal living expenses, but like that was the entirety of my responsibility. I had 95% or so of my net worth in Bitcoin. And every dollar I got, I bought more Bitcoin. And so it was just full conviction. Now, with that said, there was a lot of other, maybe seeds I was planting in the ground. So I was building a business. I didn't take a salary, but at least I knew that, hey, if this works, there'll be equity value there. I was investing out of a fund outside of my personal capital. So I knew that, hey, if I make good investments in this fund down the road, right, there'll be money here. So, in terms of like the liquid assets I had, I was all in for the most part. But I also, again, kind of this like risk reward. I knew that I was still making bets or still setting something up where, okay, if I'm good at this other thing or I'm right, there will be some sort of, upside there as well. They may have some correlation to each other, right? Early stage technology and Bitcoin are somewhat correlated, but it's not like I was, buying Bitcoin and then buying Bitcoin miners in the public market, right? Where it was like, full correlation.
Quick one. I want to thank our partners who help us make this show possible. I'd like to thank our friends at Jupiter, the DeFi super app. Anything you want to do on chain, from trading to earning yield, you can just use Jupiter. Personally, I'd recommend getting the Jupiter wallet on either your laptop or your phone, 10 times faster and 10 times cheaper than the competition. You're gonna love it. Thank you to the awesome team at KAST Card, my go-to card to spend my stablecoins directly with my Apple Pay to buy anything, food, coffee, hotel night, or plane tickets without having to use a bank ever again. How do you change that? Like, I don't want to call it like, there's a fine line between being a gambling addict and being like very concentrated, but sometimes you might be kind of in denial, right? Or you might be so confident in your bets that you're going like all in. Then you say at some point you have more responsibilities and you need to change that. Are you really able to change that? Or it's the other kind of seeds that you planted that actually became big enough so that you can still, I don't want to say be a degen, but like be all in and fully concentrated in your bets in your liquid portfolio?
To me, like the degen stuff, all that to me is like fairly unsophisticated speculation, right? So that is, I'm in a group chat, somebody tells me something, I don't even look into it, I just buy it because somebody says it's going up 20x. Oh, I find this thing, it's going to promise me 50% returns. That sounds too good to be true, but screw it, I'm in, right? Like there's a kind of an ungoverned, unsophisticated, pure gambling or speculation. That's not what I do. Bitcoin's a great example, right? I don't think I've ever publicly said this, but in 2018, I had the opportunity to meet with a sovereign wealth fund. And you can remember in 2018, that was not a very popular thing for institutional type investors to be interested in Bitcoin. And there's this one gentleman who had a very storied career, very successful. And in that conversation, I realized that we were going to have to explain to him what was Bitcoin. And I went back recently and I looked, and we wrote more than a 20-page research paper. What is Bitcoin? How does it work? How do you custody it? How do you value it? All the cycles, all this stuff. How many people did that amount of work and could explain it that clearly? Probably not that many, right? There's definitely some, but when you do that, you have the utmost conviction. Now, I could have been wrong, right? Bitcoin could have not worked, whatever. But like, to me, it wasn't a risky bet. It was, I've done the work. I have confidence in the analysis that I've done. So I have conviction. I'm not the type of person that if you say to me, hey, here's a stock tip, I'm not even going to go look at it, right? I have a very specific kind of, strategy. And so I think that it is less about like high risk taking. What I really think of myself is I try to have a concentrated portfolio where I am a maximum risk mitigator. By mitigating risk, it allows me to be very concentrated because the bets are so asymmetric.
What does that mean concretely for you? You said before mid to late 20s, I had a girlfriend, an apartment, and 95% of my net worth in Bitcoin or liquid net worth in Bitcoin. You're now in your mid 30s. You have a wife. Yeah,
mid 30s,
4 kids.
Perfect.
Later than mid 30s. Okay, very
mid 30s.
Mid 30s is good. He'll take it. You're in your mid 30s. I'm in my mid 20s. What does that look like today in terms of a liquid net worth, Bitcoin wise? Like, how did you change a lot, or you still think?
Well, I didn't. I made a concentrated effort that I need to dilute the percentage from a Bitcoin perspective by making more money and going and investing it in other assets.
Okay, fair enough.
Right. So I didn't want to sell the Bitcoin, but I also didn't want to continue to have 95% of my net worth in Bitcoin. So it's really hard, right? I mean, Bitcoin performs very well.
Yeah.
And so you have to, you got to do a lot of different things. And so I just think of it as, this is a natural cycle of maturation for most young people who begin to invest. You start out hyper concentrated, and then over time, you end up either adding a couple of more concentrated bets so you get diversification, even though you might go from 1 or 2 to 5, more than doubled, right? Or, almost 5x the number of bets that you had. But also, Bitcoin's a very interesting asset where I just at some point said to myself, I'm just going to give this to my grandchildren. Once I decided that, it's like an illiquid asset.
So it means you don't buy Bitcoin anymore?
I still have more Bitcoin today than I did then. Sometimes I've bought it. Sometimes I've gotten distributions from funds in Bitcoin. Look, I'm a Bitcoin believer, right? So if I have an opportunity to get more Bitcoin, I'm going to get more Bitcoin. But I think that there's certain things or certain attributes that you start to think about. So when I was very young, I was solely interested in what I would consider maximum return. Right, just total return. What if I buy something? Which one's going to go up the most? I don't care about volatility. I don't care about correlation. I just want max return. Bitcoin was probably one of the best, if not the best, assets to do that in. Right, so like check. Okay, got that one at least directionally correct. Now, I tend to think of things as I want to invest in certain areas that are solving problems and make a return. So
Rich people problem.
it's not a rich people problem. It's Bitcoin does that, right? Bitcoin helps protect purchasing power for hundreds of millions of people around the world. I feel very good, right, about Bitcoin's role in the world and what it's producing. But also, take housing as an example. We started a business in residential real estate sector like 2.5 years ago. And if you go and you look at the announcement, it's called Resi Club. And in that announcement, I talked about home affordability is the worst that it's been. It's going to continue to get worse. You cannot solve the problem unless you understand the problem. We partnered with a guy who I think is the #1 residential real estate reporter in the country. He's got Lance Lampert. We started a business to go and try to solve that from an information, insights, research, et cetera standpoint. Today, they are one of the most sought after, places for information and data on the housing industry. Okay, great. Putting my time, my attention, my energy, and some of my capital towards trying to help solve that problem, right? If we're right, we'll all make money. Great. That's how economics and how capitalism should work. On top of that, though, when I saw Open Door and a bunch of people start thinking about that business and looking at it and talking about it, et cetera, I said, I want to invest in this business because this could potentially help solve this problem. It's another way to get at that same problem, right? Now, if you said to me, hey, make the investment, you're going to lose all your money, I wouldn't have made the investment. If you said to me, make the investment, you've got a high upside potential, but you're not going to do any good in the world, I wouldn't have cared either. Because you mentioned rich people problem. I don't think that's what it is, right? I don't think that I've come to the conclusion that the businesses that create value over time do something positive in the world. They solve a problem for somebody. And when you look at it through that lens, all of a sudden you can start to say to yourself, what is the role of this business in society? What is the problem that it is solving? And how good of a solution does it have to that problem? As you understand that, now you know where economic returns are going to come.
It's a bit similar. Similar as building a company. You can't keep going at it if you don't believe in the thing, right? Of course. So the investment is the same. Like the thing will do well, not well, etc. You're not going to keep the thing if you don't have conviction. Absolutely.
I tweeted this a while ago, and I think that people, I think they kind of thought I was joking, and I forget the exact way I described it, but I basically said, I would rather my portfolio go to zero holding Bitcoin and Open Door and a bunch of these assets than make a ton of money playing some sort of like insider game where it's just this circular thing, money moves around and rich people keep making each other richer, but you don't actually have the impact in the world. And so, I think that's easy to say once you start making these investments, but it's just how I genuinely feel.
It's the same as building a genuine business versus scamming people, right? If you think about the mindset, it's like, okay, I could maybe like take a shortcut and make much more money, but like, how would I feel? Probably like shit. Depending who it is, but like most people would feel like shit. Whereas I can build a business the right way. It's very hard. It's hard to make profits. All that, it takes much more time, but I'll feel much better about myself, and maybe I'll be less rich than a scammer, but at least I'll feel good, right? I won't want to throw myself out of the window randomly when I wake up in the morning.
I tell a couple of friends and I have discussed this, where we've seen people do things in the business world, and we say, man, do you know how rich we would be if we didn't care about our reputations, if we didn't care about our ethics, if we didn't care about, could we go to sleep at night? Imagine me in 2021 if I had launched a crypto coin. I could make $1 billion, right? Probably. And there's people who did that. It's just never. I've always said there is zero chance that I was ever going to do something like that, right? In the private tech world, how many founders went and they raised at these massive valuations, took huge secondaries, and within 6 months walked away and said, hey, I'm going to go work on other things, right? Again, it's a different mentality.
Yeah.
And so I think that, again, I'm not here to judge anyone, right? It's just, what do I want to do with my time? What do I want to do with my energy? And focus on that.
Thank you to our friends at Paradex for supporting this show. Paradex is the leading perpetuals decentralized exchange with zero fees, deep liquidity, and privacy. Season 2 runs through the end of January, so you do not want to miss this one. Trade on Paradex and start earning points by using the link in the description down below. At When Shift Happens, we're huge believers in freedom, and privacy is at the core of it. That is why we partnered with Zashi Wallet, the easiest self-custody wallet for private transactions. You can send, receive, and spend Zcash without middleman or surveillance using Zashi, the wallet that was built by the team that launched Zcash in 2016. Thank you to Mantle, the distribution layer that connects traditional finance and on-chain liquidity for real-world assets. To accelerate this vision, Mantle is running the Mantle Global Hackathon and is inviting developers, founders, and innovators to design, build, and deploy scalable real-world assets and decentralized products on Mantle. Check the description down below to participate in the Mantle Global Hackathon and make a difference. I just want to talk about what you said before. You have this Bitcoin portfolio and then you say, I'm not going to sell that. I need to force myself to create more value somewhere else so that part that is already outperforming so well becomes a lesser part of my portfolio, right? And so that's actually an amazing way to look at. Most people will look at, I need to invest in this whatever next amazing asset to become rich. No, you need to invest in that, but then you need to never sell and build more value on the side to kind of dilute this part that you don't sell. Mm-hmm. And you basically need to force yourself to go and kind of suffer more. And one way is to buy Bitcoin. Another way is probably to get married and have kids in terms of suffer more, in terms of like how much money I need to generate, mm-hmm. right? If you think about that, for example, like I'm thinking about this too. How much do you think about now is a good time to get married and have kids versus where I'm at in this kind of financial position, right? Oh, maybe Bitcoin did amazing well and maybe I reached my goal, my number for retirement in terms of Bitcoin, right? But actually, I'm not generating that much money. But hey, I have a wife, she wants to have kids, etc. Like, how do you think about that? Do you think it should be rational as a man, or you're more like, fuck it, like I go for it, and then I just need to find ways to not sell my Bitcoin, but generate more cash flow, whatever, with other businesses?
I think I've always approached it as the money ultimately, you can't take it with you. So live your life and enjoy it, right? I was, in a weird way, very fortunate to live through a very unfortunate situation early in my life. And it really hit me, we're all going to die. Once you understand that, you say to yourself, all of the business, the finance, the investing, the money, all that kind of stuff, it's important to a degree. You got to be able to afford to live. You got to be able to support your family or your children, or maybe you want, really important thing. There's some people I know who are like, traveling gives me energy and happiness. Costs money, right? You got to be able to afford that stuff. So like, it's important to be able to do the things that you want in your life. But there's a lot of things that I consider some of the best things in life that are free, right? Now, people will be like, oh, marriage is free. Let me tell you. You want to go on a date? That costs money, right? You want to go that costs money, right? You want to have kids? It costs money, right? So again, it's this weird dichotomy of like, even the things that people, kind of pontificate about, the things in life are free. If you really want to enjoy it, it costs money, right? Yeah, so money is important. When I met my now wife, I'd never thought I was going to get married, ever. And it wasn't for any other reason than I was just like, I like my life. I'm good. Right. I had friends who were really happily married. I had friends who had disastrous marriages. Right. And I'm good. Like I like my life. But once I met her, by the end of the first day, I was calling her my girlfriend. She was like, will you stop that? Right. Like, what are you doing? And then at some point it was just like, it felt right. Like, hey, let's have a kid. Right. Okay. Let's have a second kid. Right. Okay. Right. And you just figure it out, right? But I tell young men all the time, the single most motivating thing in the world is when your wife gets pregnant for the first time. There is something biologically that switches in your brain where you are like, it is on me now to make sure that this kid can eat food. It's motivating, right?
Yeah.
And there's some people who that scares the hell out of them, frankly, right? And they're like, I don't want that switch to turn, right? Like I'm good. There's a lot of people who say, look, I want to be in that situation. Neither one's right or wrong. It's just, who are you? What makes you happy? And then go pursue that.
You said it's for your fifth show of the day, right? You talk to a lot of smart people. I'm not one of them. What's one topic that comes the most in terms of our audience obviously is into investing and wealth building for 2026 amongst all the people you talk to?
I think that there are three things people are very interested in right now. Humanoid robots is, I think, a huge investment trend. I think that there's going to be an explosion of the prediction markets. I think that's a very still underestimated trend. And then I think that there is, I'll call it AI, but not AI like the model companies and stuff like that, like the actual applications and the things that people are going to use. So kind of like AI enabled, whether it's services, products, etc. And, you know, if you think humanoid robots, the biggest market in the world, you're going to replace humans in a bunch of jobs. Okay. If you think of prediction markets, it is a new source of information. No different than the internet was a new source of information. Now you have this new source of information here. And it's information meets finance. So there's a monetization method. Really interesting. And then the AI stuff, I think all you're doing is you're taking superhuman intelligence and you're using it to do things. Those things are likely to be very valuable. And so you just look at, okay, where are the opportunities in these different sectors? And, you know, sometimes we might want to build companies. Other times we might want to invest in them.
Quick one. I want to thank our partners who help us make this show possible. Thank you, Trezor, my favorite cold wallet to store my crypto and make sure I sleep well at night. If you want to order a Trezor wallet and sleep well at night too, you can use my promo code WSH10 to get a 10% discount. Thank you to our friends at Sui for supporting this show. Sui is a scalable layer 1 blockchain that's fast, secure, and affordable, built by previous Facebook developers, and that delivers the benefits of Web3 with the ease of Web2. Big thank you to Bitwise Asset Management for backing today's conversation. Bitwise is a crypto specialist asset manager with more than $15 billion in client assets across 30 plus crypto solutions, including ETFs, index funds, alpha strategies, staking, and more. However you like to invest in crypto, Bitwise has something for you. What's one way to invest in each of these three? I mean, probably the first one is probably Tesla. I would say for someone normal, right?
In the public market, Tesla, I think, is probably the biggest one. Yeah.
Tesla.
I mean, look, if you really want to get very sophisticated, you can go and you can look, okay, what are all the component parts that are in the humanoid robots? What companies produce those? How do I go and actually isolate it? You also could use like a prediction market where you could say, hey, is there some way to bet on the number of humanoid robots that are in the market at a certain time or something like that? Prediction markets, it's pretty difficult right now unless you can invest in the private market, right? But I think that'll be a big sector. And then the AI stuff, you know, I think it's pretty hard for people to predict which one of these is going to be successful. And so there's the NVIDIAs and kind of like the infrastructure players, right? Chip manufacturers, whatever. Or use it. You know, one of the things that I always laugh about is, let's say that you and I both have $100 and I say, okay, I got to go find somewhere where I can put $100 and it can double. And I want to do that this year. There's not a lot of 2Xs in 12 months. Now, people coming from the crypto world are like, what are you talking about? That happens in like 5 days, right? You know, they're so used to, you know, kind of this different world. But in the regular world, most investors, if they got 2X every year on an investment, they would be ecstatic. But could you just use the AI to make an extra $100?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? No downside, all upside.
Yeah. I talked to Brian Armstrong from Coinbase and Avishal from Electric Capital, and they both said the same thing. The technology is not lacking. The resources are not lacking. What's lacking is self-belief. Most people don't have self-belief. And so they're talking at larger scale, right? Thinking about launching the next big thing. But here, even the people don't think about themselves. Like, hey, like you have $100 or $1,000, probably you are the best person to invest into to double or 10x or 20x this money. But you're not thinking that way.
Well, just think, let's say your living expenses is $2,500 a month, right? That's a lot of money for a lot of people, right? Okay. Well, if you have some way to cover that $2,500, could you use your time and energy and talent to generate a better return than going and buying a stock?
Probably.
Right?
Probably.
Who are the best investors in the world? Entrepreneurs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? That own businesses.
Let's finish with a quick one that people will want to know. You still own a big chunk of your Bitcoin, your portfolio in Bitcoin. What's a realistic return for 2026 and beyond for someone who buys today at 70K or 80K or 120K?
Well, I think that, I don't know, for the next year or two. If I look out over a long time horizon, I think Bitcoin will continue to compound somewhere in the 20 to 30% a year range. Could be higher certain years, could be lower certain years, right? But somewhere in that range, kind of 2 to 3 times the stock market. Okay. Over 10 years, it's a really attractive return, right? There's not many hedge funds that say, hey, I return 25 or 30% a year every year compounded for a decade or 2 decades.
For free. That you don't have
no
to pay.
fees. And you don't have to do any work. That's the other thing is if you work at a hedge fund, you got to work. You got to talk to people. You got to do research. You got to, it's stressful. What's the end of quarter mark? What's my bonus going to be? How do we hire? Oh, I got to manage people. I got to deal with LPs. I mean, there's a lot of work there. So again, it just comes back to, I think people who hold Bitcoin over a long time horizon, they'll be happy. Maybe if they had unrealistic expectations, they won't be as happy as they thought they would be. If they had low expectations, they'll be more happy than they thought. But over time, Bitcoin tends to do very well. And I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon.
30% a year, what does that get us to in 10 years?
Well, it depends on where do we start, right? Bitcoin's price is all over the place.
Yeah, let's say 100K. So to make it very easy, could be 50, could be 150. But like, let's say 100K, like what for people, because people kind of think exponentially, right?
It's very hard. Yeah.
How do you think, what does that mean? 30% a year for 10 years, more or less.
I don't know what the math is off the top of my head, right? I can't think exponentially either. But if you just think about every single year, that compounding gets bigger and bigger. And the longer it goes, the more in the later years, right? So the beauty of compounding is it's like the Buffett, 65 years old. And after, that's when he made most of his money. He started when he was 12, right? So if you think about that, for 12 to 65, he was pretty rich. But most of his money came after the age of 65. It helps that he lived to 90-something years old, but still, that's crazy.
You said I'm going to leave my Bitcoin to my grandchildren. So that's probably in a long time. What do you think a Bitcoin could be worth in whatever 30, 40, 50 years when you leave your Bitcoin to your grandchildren?
1 Bitcoin.
What?
1 Bitcoin is going to equal 1 Bitcoin,
Good
right?
answer.
Just think fiat currency has been around since 1971, right? We're 55 years into the experiment?
Yeah.
So 40 years from now means that Bitcoin would be the same age that fiat currency is right now.
1 Bitcoin.
Worth 1 Bitcoin.
$1 is definitely not worth $1 anymore.
$1 is not worth $1 from last year, right?
Amazing, Pom. Thank you so much for doing this. That was awesome, as usual.
Thank you for having me.
As you probably know by now, I host some of the biggest names in Bitcoin and crypto on my podcast. But a lot of the best stuff never makes it on air. The Shift newsletter is where I share that raw behind-the-scene alpha, the insights, stories, and lessons straight from my guests that you won't hear anywhere else. If you want the real inside take on Bitcoin and crypto, join my newsletter, The Shift, in the description down below.